Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am going to be telling a dating story that I experienced recently that was just bizarre. I find bad dates kind of hilarious at this point. There's always an opportunity to learn. I am a little bit torn because I don't want to be making fun of people because, we're all lovable, but I also have this urge to tell hilarious stories. So that is the side of me that has won out. Um, so I went on a date last night and, sorry, I got a little fatty down here. Just giving herself a bath. I wish you guys could see that one day when we have better camera setup. So I went out with a guy last night to a King Street bar called New Orleans, which is like spelt so that you understand how to pronounce New Orleans. And they had live jazz. And as Paul F. Tompkins says, the thing about jazz is that it's like each member of the band gets their own solo. So it is like it's a little bit of a loud grating sound for a date. I love jazz, okay? Like, disclaimer, love John Coltrane, love Thelonious Monk, but I wasn't going, this is not that kind of jazz that they were playing. It was so loud and so dark. And so he picks a seat that is next to the door. And he takes the inner cozy part that's next to the curtains and he's all cozy. I'm literally next to an open door. Half of me is in fact hanging out so that anytime somebody opens the door, not only do I get blasted with cold air, but I also get bumped into. So I'm being bumped into the whole time because it's a narrow King Street restaurant where the tables are like literally all jammed together. Why he wasn't more of a gentleman and took the terrible seat is a mystery that we'll never know. So I was freezing, and then he kind of made fun of that. He's like, if I was you, I would have kept my coat on all night. Cool. Yeah. I should have done that. Yeah, that's the problem there, is that I don't have my jacket on. And the waitress comes by and she's like, did you guys want to order any food? He's like, no, not considering that maybe I wanted to. I didn't, but he just said no for both of us, which was very strange. And then he proceeded to ask me a bunch of kind of like rapid fire questions. Like, would you ever dinner tonight? And I'm like, tamales. And he's like, what'd you have for lunch? I'm like, 2 chorizo tacos. He's like, oh, you like Mexican food? Like, I felt like I was filming a rapid fire video. So that was a little awkward. But then when I would ask him questions, so it turns out that he lived in like Boston, San Francisco, all these really cool American cities that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to hear about them, but I was getting nothing. I'm like, how was Boston? Cool, fun. Yeah, okay. Got anything else to say? So maybe 20 minutes into the date, I gave up trying to get to know him and ask him questions. He was also like fidgeting, like he was like touching the cutlery, and he kept picking up his glass and kind of looking at his glass, and he was like looking at the jazz band. He was like bebopping and scatting to the band and like not making eye contact with me, but like looking off into the distance and stuff like that. So when he told me he had ADHD, I was not surprised. But it was a little bit hard to settle into that energy. I mean, I tried to, I took my swizzle straw from my martini and started kind of playing, since he kept pushing his glass, I would take the swizzle stick and kind of push it back. So I was trying to work with his energy instead of whatever the alternative was, sit there and be frustrated and have people bump into me the entire night. I noticed that he had a Slytherin scarf. I don't know why you wouldn't pick Ravensclaw or Gryffindor, but that's fine. So at least I had an in on, we could talk about Harry Potter, and he hates Dumbledore, but okay, sure. I mean, how do you hate Dumbledore? He hates Harry Potter too, and fair enough, Harry Potter can be super annoying, but he found Harry Potter entitled, which I have not experienced that. I do find him a little bit annoying. We also had yoga in common, so he had just started doing Kundalini yoga, and I'm like, oh great, let's talk about yoga. Nope. That's not happening. Just like the San Francisco and Boston, I got nowhere with yoga. And I wanted to talk about the Kundalini energy. I was like, listen, before I focused on releasing my Kundalini energy. I had to do a lot of prepping because it is such a powerful energy to unleash up your chakras. It's not really something that you just mess about with. Same with tantric energy. You don't just like go full hog and like sign up for a class and like release all these energies. It requires some prep and some mindfulness, but he just thought I was weird. And I guess talking about Kundalini energy is a little bit weird, but he's going to Kundalini yoga and I wanted to talk about it. So that was a thing. Couldn't get the conversation going because he's busy tapping to the jazz. And yep, that just, what do you do, right? So I just decided to sit back and enjoy it and have fun with it because it was very different from anything I'd ever experienced. I tried one last time he kind of criticized my job. Like, he was like, what do you do? Makeup and skincare expert. And he's like, is that what you want to be doing? And I'm like, actually, it's a really fun job and I'm very passionate about it. So that was a little bit strange. I mean, all of these things in themselves are okay, but when you put them all together, it is a wackadoodle time. And I was talking about Estee Lauder, like I said, I went to an Estee Lauder training and that was really interesting. And he's like, oh, Estee Lauder is it's one of my accounts. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what do you do with that? Nothing. I just got nothing. He's like, I can't tell you what my ideas are for Estee Lauder. And I'm like, okay, okay. And then he went to the bathroom and was gone for like a million years. And when he came back, he's like, I ordered dessert to go. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Honestly, I was just relieved that it was over. And he then said that, like, we were kind of talking about Mexico, and he's like, you're too tall for Mexican men. And I'm like, okay, what? All right. So when the waitress came and he asked for the bill, I was like, I need a shot of Patron. I've earned it. You know what I mean? She's like, do you want gold? Do you want silver? I'm like, doesn't matter. You pick it. So at least I got a shot of Patron. Then when we leave, oh, sorry, one other part. He said I have long fingers, and they'd be great for playing an instrument. And then he's like, let's see your fingers. And he proceeds to like try to hold my hand and play with my fingers. This was in the first 10 minutes of the date. And like, I'm not jazzed about people trying to have weird finger play at a table within the first 5 minutes of the date. 10 minutes of the date. I felt super uncomfortable. And what is that? Like, he was just like, oh, like long fingers, and just kind of doing some of this stuff. Oh, there's my bear. There's my little fatty bear scratching herself. So, yeah, I mean, I'm an awkward person, and like doing this jazz is so awkward for me. So we leave the date because he ordered his dessert to go. I got my shot of Patron, and we leave, and he's like, how are you getting home? We live in the same area, by the way. Like, he does not live far to me. We're going in the same direction. I'm like, oh, I was just going to take the King car. And he's like, I'm taking an Uber. I'm like, okay. And he's like, where's your stop? There's a couple things. Like, I don't need you to pay for an Uber, obviously. But it's just, there's a couple of things you could have done. We could have shared the Uber, drops you off, and literally less than 5 minutes later, it'll be at my place, and I'll pay you back. You could take transit with me. At the very least, you can walk me to my stop and make sure I get home safely. What is that? Why would a guy just let me go off alone and then he takes an Uber? And he's like, when can I see you again? And he like pulls me in and gives me this like weird kiss that I thought he was aiming here. I don't know what was happening. I gave him a quick peck and then he was trying to open his mouth and my awkward radar totally went off again. And he's like, when can we do this again? I'm like, dude, you're not even like caring about how I'm getting home. What? My streetcar comes, I just run. and jump on it. So I don't know, maybe I sound entitled like Harry Potter, the most famous poster child for entitlement, but that was a weird experience. That was a very interesting experience. But I mean, I found it enjoyable and hilarious. I don't really find dating like a downer anymore. Like my friends were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I mean, some of my friends are making fun of me, which they should. That's the appropriate response. And some of them were like, "Oh, that sucks. I'm so sorry this happens to you." I'm like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. All of these experiences are teaching me so much. So it's totally cool because I love growing and learning, and keep fit and have fun, everybody. Thanks for watching.